In today's video, I'm showing you my process for turning my manga into a webtoon. So my manga has gone through a number of evolutions over the years. It originally started out as more of a manga-sized project with about 200 pages, but it eventually evolved into being 500 pages for the first volume and 500 pages for the second book, which will be coming out this year. And as I've grown as an author, I have ended up adding more pages and developing those characters along the way. When I first created Having Faith, I never really considered making it as a webcomic. I always loved the webcomic style, but to me, I always wanted to create something that felt more authentically based as a manga, so I never really considered creating it as a webtoon. When I first released Having Faith as a graphic novel, unfortunately it's really difficult to really promote that story, and not that many people actually read the original self-published book, so I really wanted to be able to share my work more, especially because I put so many years into creating Having Faith, so I decided that I really wanted to share it as a webcomic. And I originally shared it as a webcomic in the original style of the book, which is a left to right manga inspired style of page. But in webtoons with that vertical scrolling format, it's really hard to be able to know which direction to be able to read the pages, especially when the pages are read in a vertical format. So I wanted to really try and learn the webtoon paneling style, and I thought, why not try and learn the paneling style with the manga and the artwork that I've already created? So I decided to try and turn my self-published manga into a webtoon. So in this video, I really wanted to just talk about my process and stuff I've learned, and I really think it's a good learning experience. Now, of course, most webcomics will have larger pages of art in the webcomic, so as you scroll down, you sort of see those really close-up angles. Now, for me, I'd already drawn these smaller panels, so I was trying to figure out ways to be able to present those panels in that vertical format style. So the first thing I wanted to do was to understand the page dimensions, because I never really understood how the vertical page dimensions really worked. Now, some people create the canvas first and then break it into parts, but I learned that the page dimensions for webtoons, so the page dimensions that they require when you enter your pages onto the website, is 800 by 1280 pixels. So from that, I decided to lift the resolution to 1500 by 2400 pixels, which would mean I could create the artwork in a high resolution and then let Webtoons scale down the artwork when I upload the artwork. So that is what I did to keep it high resolution and to ensure that the pages don't end up looking blurry. And of course, the thumbnail dimensions when you upload your thumbnail is 202 by 142 pixels. So I began by looking at, I'd already uploaded my prologue in a vertical scrolling format, and I was working on chapter 1 of Having Faith. And so in this chapter, I was sort of using the line tool to break away main panels from the actual pages. So I was using the main panels and sort of trying to find the best way to break up that page so that as you're scrolling down, it feels like you are seeing the story along with the characters. I wanted to use that to really allow the scene to build momentum and suspense. So throughout the scene, you sort of feel like the tension is building up and you don't quite know where the scene is going. And I feel like this is a really great element for the vertical scrolling format, because when you look at a manga page as a whole, you're taking in the entire page. This makes it a lot more difficult to be able to add twists to the page. Whereas in a vertical scrolling format, as you scroll down, you don't know what is actually coming up next until you scroll down and see it. So in the paneling, I tried to add enough space between the panels so this could be presented, and one of the things I struggled with was knowing how much space to leave between panels. I ended up usually adding 2 panels per page or even 1 panel per page, depending on what I felt needed more of a focus. And then from there, I would sort of upload the panels and then readjust it depending on where I felt like there needed to be more white space. I don't know in the final version if there was too much white space. I feel like in most other webcomics, they have a bit more colors and artwork between, but since I'm taking actual panels I've already drawn and then turning it into a webtoon format, it was a little bit more difficult to know where to actually place the panels. So that was something I was experimenting with, but I do think it's really good to experiment with this style. Towards the end of the chapter, I was really struggling to figure out how to present a larger panel. So you see the larger panel at the end, and Usually these larger panels, you could just put them straight as they are, but I wanted to also create the effect of this divide, feeling like Willow as a character feels divided from the other people around her. So I sort of ended up using a diagonal division to be able to then present the separation between her and the other characters. And I feel like the choice of paneling and the borders you use can also really reflect how the characters are feeling in the scene. So I sort of did that a number of times, going back and forth between uploading the files and then going back and changing them to make sure that the panels actually looked okay in the final files. And so there we go. That is how I am paneling Having Faith as a webtoon. So I would really appreciate if you could check it out. It's now on Webtoons, and I would really love your support and your feedback. So thank you so much for watching my video today, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know what kind of webcomic you're creating, because I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I'm sure others would love to hear your thoughts too. Visit my website midnightscross.com for resources, templates, and workbooks that can help you to level up your story. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!